thank you for coming to the Yes on 4 campaign. We have several exciting pieces of news today, not only to highlight the strong support from Maine businesses, people who actually are trying to create jobs in Maine, but to also publicly release our latest polling information as well as an analysis of spending on both sides of the campaign. My name is Taryn Bragdon. I am the CEO of the Maine Heritage Policy Center. It's an honor to be here today. The Maine Heritage Policy Center wrote the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, Question 4, in order to make Maine a more prosperous state. Research and evidence from other states clearly show that if you want to have a prosperous economy, you need to have reasonable limits on government spending and taxes, and that is exactly what Question 4 will do. We're very excited to be releasing today a poll that we commissioned from Critical Insights of 600 likely voters in Maine. The Critical Insights poll was conducted over the last 4 days from October 23rd through October 26th. And it shows that 47% of likely Maine voters are supporting Question 4. Only 8% remain undecided, while 45% say they are voting no. I think this is particularly noteworthy given the incredible spending on the other side, and we'll talk a little bit about who's financing that spending. Opponents are outspending the Maine taxpayers by a 12-to-1 ratio. But even more interesting is when you follow the money and look at where the big government folks opposing Question 4 are getting their money from. The PAC reports reveal that Citizens Unified for Maine's Future has received 67% of their $1.9 million from union bosses and out-of-state special interests, including the SEIU, state employees, the National Education Association, even though Question 4 in no way impacts education spending, and other forced union, big labor money. 20% of their money, $370,000, has come from Donald Sussman, a Connecticut resident and Wall Street hedge fund founder whose firm received $200 million in federal bailout money. Another 9%, $170,000, has come from the Maine Municipal Association, solely funded by our property tax dollars. Disgusting that our property tax dollars are being used to prevent us from voting for real property tax relief. Interestingly, less than 1% of all their funding was raised from actual Maine citizens, taxpayers. If you follow the money, it becomes clear. The opponents of Question 4 are outspending us at a 12-to-1 rate, and they're running a campaign of misinformation funded by union bosses and DC special interests, an out-of-state Wall Street bailout recipient, and our own tax dollars. But as the latest poll shows, we are still leading in this race. Yes on 4 continues to lead in the polls and subtract the support of Maine taxpayers and Maine's business community. I am very, very pleased to be represented behind me with several people who actually employ individuals in the private sector here in Maine. And you'll hear directly from representatives of Maine's business community on why Question 4 is so important to Maine's economic future. First, Chris Hall, Vice President of Government Relations for the Greater Portland Chamber of Commerce. Chris?
Darren, thank you very much. The Portland Regional Chamber represents almost 1,500 employers in this area. And since 2002, we've recognized the need to lower Maine's tax burden, to control spending, and to bring prosperity to Maine through more sane fiscal policies. We've endorsed the measure on Question 4 on the ballot because we think it is a responsible means toward controlling spending. Now, I have to tell you that we have worked hard over the course of the last 7 years to help shape the policy debate in ways that move us toward this outcome. And very honestly, I'm shocked that at this 11th hour in this campaign, after 7 years of discussion, scare tactics, fear-mongering has become the opponent's tactic. It's wrong. What we want to have is a conversation about the level of taxes and the level of spending in Maine. We can do that one of two ways. We can pass TABOR, and we can let voters decide when rapid spending increases and large tax increases are appropriate, or we can do it with the people's veto. But we have to reach a consensus on fiscal policy in order for Maine to have a kind of stable fiscal environment that allows us to grow our economy. Right now, we are in a boom and bust budget cycle. In the headlines here at the end of October, what are we hearing about? Devastation to schools because of budget cuts. That's not because of TABOR, folks. That's because we budget too much, we don't get the monies when the economy turns, and then we have to cut. This instability is inimical to the prosperity of our state. You can't have a prosperous state unless you have stable policies. TABOR allows us to have that conversation. It does not guarantee an outcome. It guarantees people get to vote. And frankly, I'm shocked that some folks don't want to have that conversation in a civil, upfront way. That's the way we do things in Maine. That's the way the Maine business community expects that we're going to conduct ourselves in policy. And certainly that's the process that we've supported for the last 7 years. So I just want to say that on behalf of our membership and on behalf of everyone in Maine who wants a stronger economy, we see question 4, TABOR 2, as a key element in that outcome. I'd like to stop my remarks there and turn it over to Matt Jacobson, who's the president of Maine & Company. Matt?
I'm also here in my capacity as a gubernatorial candidate. I guess I'd like to make a couple of 2 or 3 points. And the first is that people against this somehow fear the voters. They're afraid of what the voters might do. And that's hard for me because in my personal life, I'm certainly willing to put myself out to referendum for the voters. But also I recognize that schools have already been taken out of this. So our school fear tactics are really irrelevant because it doesn't affect schools. And the second piece of evidence is that Mainers have never, at least in my experience, defeated a transportation bond. If we need infrastructure improvement, the voters will vote for it. And let's just trust them to do that and give them the opportunity. The other story I'd like to tell is one from my personal experience working in industry. I worked for a big old railroad, and I needed $125 million to build a new terminal. And I went to the Capital Committee to have that conversation, and they said no. And it wasn't that we were bad people or that we were wrong. We hadn't thought about doing it a different way. And we went back home, we redesigned the program, redesigned the product, and guess what? We provided better services to our customers, and we were able to grow our business in a responsible way. I think TABOR will give our state government that same opportunity to go back and re-look at some things, re-engineer our government, and provide better services in a more responsible way. So I think we ought to support this, and I'm very hopeful that it'll pass. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear next from Doug Newman, who is the owner of Newman Concrete. He's a small business person in central Maine, and he's going to share his views with us. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much. My name is Doug Newman. I own Newman Concrete Services. We're located in Richmond, Maine. A year ago, we had 150 employees in the field, and currently we're down to 50. It's very hard economic times on Maine small businesses. I'm also the incoming chair of Associated Builders and Contractors, and we represent 175 Maine-owned construction firms and the thousands of employees that go to work every day for us. We're here today in support of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Now, I should tell you, we're a special interest. We have our own set of values, but unlike all the other special interests that seem to be more concerned with their own particular funding sources, Associated Builders and Contractors is trying to take a broader view. Our members understand that the long-term prosperity of the state of Maine is dependent upon getting our fiscal house in order. And quite frankly, it isn't. For years, state and local government has been spending at an unsustainable rate, and they've patched their budgets together with stimulus funds and assessments and taxes and fees and gimmicks. And the day of reckoning is coming, and we believe that the governments in the state of Maine are going to come to the Maine people fairly shortly and say we have to raise your taxes. And we think that that is a very, very risky outcome that we need to try to head off if we possibly can, or at least make sure that Maine people have a say in that decision. Our industry is 2 or 3 years away from recovery. Like I said, I've laid off 2/3 of my workforce, and I think that it's unlikely that I'll be hiring them back anytime soon. If state and local government starts increasing taxes, it could have disastrous effects. So, in conclusion, we think that the Taxpayer Bill of Rights just simply gives Maine people a say. And I would say to all the other special interests out there, what are you afraid of? If the need is real and the services you provide are valued, we think Maine people will make the right decision. We just think Maine people ought to have the say. Thank you.